Victor Quiroz, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and today we're talking to you sellers. This is a video about what to expect when you're selling your home. Okay, so this is for you sellers out there. Pay attention, take notes, or just rewind the video and watch it over and over again. So, I'm going to assume you just hired me, or you hired some other great listing agent in the city where you live in. Okay, we just left, the contract signed, we drive away, and you're wondering, well, what's next? And here's what I wrote down. The first thing you should expect is you should expect to clean up your house. That's the number one thing I have here. Clean up your house, get it showroom ready, get all the little details that you've been putting off fixing, you know, leaky faucets, light bulb replacements, squeaky doorknobs. Get all that stuff taken care of prior to the listing agent coming back with the photographer and videographer, because you get one chance to make that first impression in residential real estate, and you want to make sure the property is in show condition. Alright, so clean up the property, spruce it up a little bit, do all that regular maintenance you've been putting off. The next thing I wrote down for you to expect when selling your house is you should expect a yard sign to magically appear in your front yard. They're really good at being quick in and out. Now, tomorrow, when you wake up, there may be a yard sign there. If your agent, requested a rush on that sign, it may come up the next day, but expect a yard sign, because according to the National Association of Realtors, people still drive around neighborhoods they like, and they still call yard signs. That's the number 3 way buyers find the home they purchase in today's market. Even with the Zillows and Realtor.coms out there on the internet, people still call yard signs. So expect a yard sign, and expect for all of the rest of the marketing strategy that your broker has in place to kick in. Expect to see your house on the internet. Expect to get a postcard and your neighbors to get postcards of your house. Expect people to call around your neighborhood and possibly call you or some of your neighbors just to let them know about your house. Now, if they're calling your house talking about your house, it's a call center, and that's okay because they're doing their job. Just expect the marketing to take place. The next thing that I have written down that you should expect, well, you should expect lots of phone calls and lots of showings in the first 21 days or 3 weeks of the marketing plan taking effect. The reason why you should expect a lot of phone calls and a lot of showings is because the hot buyers in your neighborhood looking for properties just like yours, they're already looking. So when your property hits the market, they want to be one of the first people to see it, and it usually happens in the first 3 weeks. So expect that. The next thing that I wrote down here is expect those buyers to negotiate the deal in their favor. Remember, it's human nature. When you buy something, you want to get the lowest price. When you sell something, you want to get the highest price, don't you? You and I both want the same thing. So do the buyers, so do the sellers all over the country, and especially here in California. So you need to know that the buyers may try to negotiate down the asking price, possibly closing costs, maybe even inspections, reports, and maybe even their contingency time frame. So expect that, depending on your market, we know how to negotiate that in your favor if you're a seller. The next thing that I wrote down here is for you to expect a deal to be reached. I mean, let's be honest, you put your property on the market because you have plans that don't involve the current community or house that you're in, right? So you want to sell, you want to move somewhere else, take you and your family to that next chapter in your life. Well, the buyer, they want to purchase their house and start the next chapter on their life as well. So if you're both serious about reaching your life goals, this deal is just a small portion of it. Of course, there's a lot of money involved, but expect a deal to be reached with the buyer, okay? So the next thing I have written down here, once we have a deal in place, within 7 days of the buyer, opening escrow, you guys, the sellers, within 7 days should expect to have all of the seller disclosures delivered to the buyer. All of the home inspection and reports, termites, natural hazard, preliminary title report, all of that stuff should be delivered to the buyer within 7 days of opening escrow. That's your responsibility as per the residential purchase agreement here in California. Now, you should also expect the buyer to, within 17 days, approve all of the disclosures you provided, all the reports, and all the different addendas. You should also expect the buyer to be holding their home inspection, for the buyer's lender, if they have one, to be conducting the appraisal report, and of course for the buyer's lender in their back office to do the underwriting and finalize the loan. All that happens within 17 days, so expect that. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of is you need to expect to possibly renegotiate the deal in case the buyer's appraisal comes in lower than your purchase price. Here's what I mean by that. The buyers have 3 hurdles to clear before they can formally close on the property. The 3 hurdles would be home inspection, home appraisal, and of course, finalizing their loan. Now, the home inspection can be done really quickly. Finalizing the loan has nothing to do with you as a seller. But the appraisal, that is major. The appraisal is from the lender, not done by the buyer or the buyer's agent, myself as a listing agent, and you and the seller have no sway over what the appraisal value will come in at. But here's the 3 things that can happen with the appraisal, and I want you to be expecting this. If the appraisal comes in at purchase value, at the contract value, awesome, you guys got a deal, you keep moving forward to the close of escrow. If the appraisal value comes in higher than your contract price, well, then you and the listing agent who you hired, because it's not me, left some money on the table. All right, it's very rare when it happens, but when it does happen, the appraisal comes in higher than the contract price. Essentially, as a seller, you got a deal, you keep moving forward, but congratulations to the buyer. They walk in with a little bit of equity. The last thing, the most dreaded thing that can happen with your appraisal is the appraisal report value comes in lower than your contract price. It's not uncommon for it to happen, especially in a rapidly appreciating market like we had in 2013. I'll tell you, here's what's going to happen if your appraisal value comes in lower than your contract price. You have an opportunity to renegotiate the deal. Now, you can renegotiate the deal and drop your price down to match the appraisal value, keep the deal rolling, and close the transaction out, move on with the next chapter of your life. You have another option. You can meet the buyer halfway in the middle. I always like to say if the purchase price was $500, but the appraisal came in at $485, you got a $15,000 gap there. You got to make up the difference. You can meet them in the middle and say, hey, buyer, why don't you kick in $7,500 in cash on top of the appraisal? I'll lower the purchase price $7,500. We'll split the difference. That's a good negotiation. But if you absolutely have to have your contract price and do not want to go below, then you cancel the deal. Or you force the buyer to come up with the difference in cash on top of the loan and all the costs they've already incurred. So those are the 3 things that could possibly happen that you should expect and be ready for when it comes to the appraisal report being turned in. Now, if you don't have any issues with appraisal, or you do and you guys reach a deal and you move on to the next step, here's what you should expect. You should expect the buyer to remove all of their contingencies as per the contract, meaning the appraisal is good, the inspection is good, and their loan is good. Okay? Once they do that, that deposit money that the buyer put down as collateral to open the deal, that's yours. If the buyer cancels the deal after removing their contingencies, then you get to keep as liquidated damages the deposit actually put into escrow, or up to 3% of the total purchase price. So expect the buyer to remove their contingencies. It is something that's formal, and not a lot of buyers agents like to do it, but it's in the contract, and I'm a big believer in enforcing that contract. It's a legal form, so why not go by the book? The next thing I have written down for you here is you should expect it to take longer than you expect to move out of your house. Sometimes people tell me, oh, I only need a couple of days to move, I'm really fast, I don't have a lot of stuff. But then I think about it, I saw that garage, I saw the attic, I saw your closets. You got a lot of stuff. Start moving. As soon as the buyer removes their contingencies, start getting rid of things. Start packing things up. It's going to take you longer than you expect to move out. The next thing I have written down here, while you're moving out and throwing things away and consolidating all of your belongings, the next thing you should expect to have all the negotiated repairs taken care of prior to the buyer's final walkthrough. And that's if you negotiated repairs in the contract after the home inspection, but expect them to be done prior to the final walkthrough. Let's see, the next thing I have here written down for you sellers. You're going to love this, and maybe even some of you are already feeling it if you're already in escrow. You should expect the lender and escrow to stress you out at some point. Really, it just happens all the time, even with some of the best loan officers in the business, because they can't control everything. Underwriting and processing has a lot to do with finalizing a loan, and majority of the time, the escrow or the loan officer, they don't have the ability or the authority to push it faster than it's going. So be patient, understand that sometimes deadlines take a little bit longer than expected, but overall, if you're working with myself or another great listing agent in your city and a great team, then you should have no issues and things will get handled, okay? But expect to get stressed out just a little bit, and most people do. The next thing I have written down here is expect it to close. Really, once the contingencies are removed on the buyer side and the loan is moving forward, you might get stressed out a little bit, but expect it to close. If the transaction is done right with a true professional, your closing will happen. And when it does happen, you need to be ready to deliver the keys and possession of the property to the buyer as per the contract, okay? Next thing I have here, you should expect for that check to take about 2 weeks to clear with your bank if you're getting a lot of equity. So I highly recommend you tell the escrow company you don't want a check for your net proceeds. You want a wire directly to your bank. This way, when you give up possession of the property to the buyer, you deliver keys, you get your money almost instantaneously. Instead of getting a check and then having to go to the bank and the bank telling you this $300,000 profit check, you don't cash these all the time, so it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks for us to clear it. Then you got no money for 2 to 3 weeks. Tell escrow you want a wire, so this way you can expect your money in your bank account on time. The last thing I think you should expect to do is you should expect to go to the post office and about a week before closing, ask them to forward your mail to your next address or your temporary address, because you don't want to keep going back and forth, knocking on the door or calling the new owner of the property to get your junk mail. Those are the things you should expect when you're in escrow. I hope you find this information very useful, and if you have any questions or concerns, please visit the website victorforhomes.com. Thank you. Thanks for watching my video. For more information or to contact me, please visit my website www.victorforhomes.com.